Welcome to Your Radiant Spirit, a space for the conversations and colors that help you see yourself more clearly. I'm Heather Eck, an intuitive artist and guide, and I believe your soul speaks in the ways the mind can't always put into words, through color, energy, and the stories your body holds. This show is where we explore those messages. Through personal stories, deep conversations, and creative insight, we'll uncover what's been hidden, release what no longer serves, and begin to imagine what's possible when you live in full alignment with who you're meant to be. What you hear here is more than inspiration, it's an opening, a chance to feel the shift that could change everything. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into today's conversation. Welcome back to Your Radiant Spirit, my friends. Today is a solo episode, and I'm here to share a story about how God delivered a message in person to me within the last week. And I shared this with my newsletter subscribers, and I felt like it would be a really good story to share with you on the podcast this week to talk about how God, the universe, our guides, our loved ones in spirit are always working overtime to deliver messages to us. Our spirits are always delivering message to us by our bodies, our emotions, our pain. And I wanted to offer this personal story today to share with you that even though this is the work that I do and I help other people do, I'm immersed in it. It doesn't escape me. Nobody is immune to the messages or to the pain and all the fun things that come with being a human, right? So last Sunday, I attended my first fine art fair in Cary, North Carolina. It was at the beloved Fenton Shopping Center in Cary. It's sort of a mixed retail living space. It's got beautiful stores, these beautiful apartments, shopping and bars. You can get a cocktail, walk around and shop. It's a really fun place to go. I recommend going around the holidays. It feels like you're standing inside a Hallmark movie. I have done a lot of markets in the past, but this was my first fine art fair. So I had a lot going on. And thankfully, I had this amazing village of people who showed up to help me organize my booth and get all my artwork up. And I really learned a lot. This was a great opportunity to learn how to approach people who were looking at my work, to talk about my artwork, how to display my work. I learned a lot of lessons, and I'm happy to share those at another time if you have questions about that. I'm glad to share it because it was a really great day for me to just sort of step into the fine art side of my business. And also because I've never done that before. I've done, like I said, other markets, but this was really a different feel. I had a lot of really great conversations with people, and it was a day filled with planting a ton of seeds, but it wasn't a day filled with a lot of sales, which was fine. I didn't expect that. I just really would call it a day spent, making connections and receiving messages because I was open to it and because God had a really important one to deliver to me. So I had one of those moments that sort of stopped me in my tracks. And this is one of those things that when it happens in the moment, I just felt stuck on stupid. I was really not prepared, even though a week before I had had the same conversation with my spiritual teacher. This just it was such a confirmation, affirmation, whatever you want to call it, that it left me standing in the booth just going, holy moly, what just happened? I was questioning, I was curious, I was a little freaked out, but in a good way. So here's what happened. This gentleman and his lovely girlfriend stepped into my booth. They looked like they had just stepped off a private plane. They were fabulous. They were decked out, great outfits, beautiful jewelry, sunglasses. I said hello. They complimented my work. They went over to one of my paintings called My Cup Runneth Over. This painting is blue and gold. It's got these beautiful hand-sculpted bowls that I adhered to the canvas. It's got this beautiful dripping gold that sort of fills the cups and looks like it's running over. And that's why I called it My Cup Runneth Over. So he's looking at the painting, and I hand him one of my cards, and on the business cards, I have one side with my information on it, Heather Eck, artist, art that heals. On the other side, I have a little graphic of chakras with color meanings, affirmations, and details about color energy. So I hand him one of my cards, and I start to say, thank you so much. The energy behind color strongly influences my work. And he looked at the card and he set it back down on the table as if to say, I'm not going to take this card with me. And I've learned in markets and shows, you literally cannot take anything personally because you'd spend your whole time just feeling really out of whack. And so I didn't really think much of it other than to just observe that he did that. He took it and he set it down. So he looks at me and he says, "Do you know what the meaning of blue is in the Bible?" And all I could do in that moment was nod because I do know what it means because I've studied it before and I've talked about it before, but I haven't really referenced it in my work as detailed as I probably have wanted to. So, weird thing here, the reason why I'm even telling this story is because I had just had a conversation with my teacher about it like a week before, and she encouraged me to elevate my understanding of color. And so I just nodded and I said, "I do." And then he went on to tell me about the color blue and the lapis lazuli throne that God sits upon, and the color blue that's woven into the priestly garments, and a couple of other things about blue. And I just sort of sat there stunned, not because I'd spent years studying color from just the perspective of the chakras, but because his words felt like a divine directive from God to share the more deeply biblical meaning of color. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that God is efficient in how he uses time and delivers messages. So I have to go back, like I mentioned, about a week ago and tell you that I had just had this conversation with my spiritual teacher, and she said the same thing. We talked about elevating my understanding of color from its origin, from the creation story. We talked about God as the ultimate artist and creator. So this is what's going on in my mind. I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh my gosh, I just talked about this. This is so crazy." And I say to him, "It's so funny that you have said this to me because I'm actually stepping away from talking about color in the chakra system, and I'm talking about it more from the biblical perspective." And he lowers his beautiful gold sunglasses to the bridge of his nose and he looks over them right in the eye and he says, "Oh, you're moving away from the Hindu understanding of color to the Christian understanding." And once again, I just stood there stuck on stupid, stunned. I thanked him for sharing what he had shared with me. And I think just out of a need to sort of turn away, I went to go straighten something close by. And I think I just needed a moment to catch my breath. And when I turned around again, they were gone. So, funny thing about this is that I had, of course, just ordered 500 new business cards like the week before, all with chakras on them. And yet, this conversation to me felt like a flashing neon sign to toss them out, place a new order. The other funny thing, and this is one of the other ways that God does amazing things for us, is that I had received a grant, a mini grant to purchase new business cards and marketing materials. And that means that I didn't spend my own business money on the cards. I was able to use the grant to do so. So that was another way that I felt supported by God. I'm not going to throw all the cards away. I have a small wholesale wine glass business and I know that they'll work fine for that and get some use. But this is a great example of how God speaks to us in really incredible ways. And now I get the opportunity not just to hear it from my teacher, but also from this stranger. And I didn't really, quote, lose anything because of the mini grant that I received. So, not only was this message from God so clear that I couldn't ignore it, but I'm also a believer that God speaks to us in the way that we can receive it. I sort of jokingly tell a lot of people I get messages through license plates and through songs. And I'm not even really joking, but it's just kind of funny to say, like, this is how God speaks to me. I think God speaks to us in the ways that we can receive it, and He's efficient in His message. He'll use whatever He can to deliver that message and make sure it's heard. So, whether that gentleman and his girlfriend were angels who were sent to my booth to deliver the message, or they just happened to be strangers who hopped off an airplane and came straight to my booth, whatever it was, God used them. For me, I think God also puts us in divine timeouts when we need a moment to sit with something. So that night, when I got home from the market, I had the worst pain in my left foot. It's not really the ankle, it's sort of the tendon that runs underneath. And the very next day, I went to urgent care to have it checked out, and I have a raging case. This is what the doctor said, a raging case of perineal tendonitis. So God delivered the message and then stopped me in my tracks. I'll be wearing this boot or this ankle brace for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm certain that this path that I'm on requires a specific level of strength and resilience. And I'm more sure than ever that I'm being divinely guided here and that God wants to be at the forefront of it, leading, guiding, and setting me firmly on the path to make some changes, not just in my art, but in my work and how I talk about it. I share this story with you because it's totally okay to change your mind, to change your direction, to change how you proceed. And while chakras and energy and yoga has always been such a big part of my practice, I definitely see now where they were sort of a derivative of the original intention. that God created the earth, He created the colors, He created oxygen and the trees and animals and people. And why wouldn't I want to talk about that? As a student of the Bible, as a very new student of Hebrew, I have to tell you there is so much more to uncover than what meets the eye. And as I dive into this work, trying to draw closer to God and to yoke myself to Jesus and start my day with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, can't help but think that all of this is coming at a very important time. So while blue has always spoken to me of peace and clarity in the throat, now it carries even more of a reminder of God's presence, His throne, and His call. I'd love to hear what you think about this story, and I'd love to start a new segment of the show called What Has He Done For Me Lately? I don't know if you remember that song from the 90s. What have you done for me lately? But I think it's important for us to share all the beautiful, powerful stories that help connect what God has done for us lately and to share it. I think that's inspiring. I think that's uplifting. God met me at the art show and delivered a message. That's just one of many things He's done for me lately. The other thing that He did was slap me in bed rest last week to rest my foot. And that's another thing that He's done for me lately. I could go on and on about what God has done for me lately. So if you have stories about what God has done for you lately, I would love to hear them. I'd love to feature them on the show or in my newsletters, whatever it is that you have experienced, I would love to share it. I would love to introduce other people to all the amazing things that God is doing. Thank you so much for listening today. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you haven't already, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe to the show and leave a review. That lets people know that you enjoyed the show. And if you feel called to go deeper into the work that's calling you and you just need someone to chat about it with, I'm totally open to that. You can grab some time on my calendar. Just visit my website at heathereck.com/workwithme. Have a great week, my friends. Remember to keep an eye out for those messages from God. Thank you for joining me today on Your Radiant Spirit. Every conversation here is an invitation to go beyond the surface, to listen to what your soul has been whispering, and to step into the life you've been longing for. If you're ready to go deeper, to work in a way that's personal, creative, and profoundly transformative, you'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Whether it's through art, a guided session, or a fully immersive journey, you'll discover a space where your truth is seen and your next chapter begins. If this episode spoke to you, it would mean the world if you shared it with a friend, left a review, or subscribed so more people can discover the conversations we have here. Until next time, my friend, keep noticing the colors, the moments, and the nudges. They're all leading you home. And for now, take a breath, hold on to what resonated, and carry it with you into the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.